Classic.
There you
Hi,
go.
guys.
Hey, Jonathan.
So first of all, I'll better be upfront with the fact that I'm Swedish, and obviously have a beef with the two of you for how you ended things with Rick Flag and Joel Kinnaman in the movie.
Yes,
So
yes.
full disclosure. But we do at least get to see echoes of that particular scene from the Suicide Squad in this show too, and it kind of feels like that was the first of a series of pivotal moments for Peacemaker to grow and evolve from in some way. So is this why you felt like there were more to the story with this character in particular when HBO asked which one you wanted to make this spin-off series revolve to?
Yeah, I think that was part of it. I think part of the thing that was interesting to me about this character was him starting to question his ideals. This is a guy who has been led around by his ideals. Every choice he's made in his life has been about his ideals, which is, peace at any cost. And I think he's starting to question that and how he's living his life and how those ideals have actually kept him away from forming any sort of bonds whatsoever with other human beings.
Yeah. And you guys really thrive in the R-rated world. We already knew that from the movie. But it's also a fact that only a few scenes between John and Crystal Mudry, I think her name is, make us all know during the climax of the first episode, if you will. Did you get any pushback at all regarding taking anything too far while creating this season from the XX?
Yes.
So it could have been even you could have gone further down that rabbit hole, I see.
Oh no, I went as far as I wanted to go. I got everything I wanted. But did I get pushback? Sure, sometimes. Not about that. Never about the sex or violence. Or I think occasionally, some of our actors, let's say Steve Agee, use the F word. Like there's a lot of F words in the scripts already. But some people like Steve Agee tend to use it constant. I mean, he uses it. He adds 1,000 F words to every sentence. And at one point they said, I know we're HBO, but maybe it's a little bit too much on the cursing. And they weren't totally wrong at that point. But for the most part, HBO Max were wonderful partners in allowing me to do creatively whatever I wanted to do. And anything that we ever got pushback from, HBO Max was actually always my allies in allowing us to push it further, because it would have come from other corporate entities around Warner Brothers as opposed to HBO Max. So HBO Max was fantastic, supporting us throughout the whole process.
That's good to hear. And John, you got to flesh out your character now in a like eight part series. That must be like a dream for an actor to take a role from a movie that fans really liked and get to spend a lot of time with that character and let us all get to know him better. How was this experience for you during this season?
Well, certainly to be able to do an episodic is amazing, because you can lean into a lot of stuff a lot longer. You don't have to rush and get through it in an hour 45 or 2.5, or you have a lot more time. I think Peacemaker is interesting because I love what audience were saying about Peacemaker. After seeing the Suicide Squad, their question was why give this piece of shit his own show? Because people, in the brief instances you saw Peacemaker in the Suicide Squad, you didn't like him. And he certainly wasn't, according to audience feedback, he wasn't deserving of that accolade. And after that feedback came out kind of after we already had Peacemaker in the can. So that was even more, to me, more interesting, because I know what James wrote. I know what we filmed. I know the moments we lived. And when people, I think people really genuinely hated Peacemaker, but he's the type of guy you want to root for. I'm a sucker. I'm an optimist, but I believe in humanity. And I believe that there are only very few very few rotten to the core human beings out there. And I think in the Suicide Squad, you got to see that Peacemaker's an asshole, but he's not rotten to the core.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think that makes for a very interesting storyline. And I like the fact that people are going into the show with the question of like, why does that asshole get a chance to get the spotlight? Because now he does have those redeeming moments where you want to be like, damn it, man, you're better than that. And I think that's going to be an interesting journey for the audience.
His father might be to the core, though.
But his father is right to the core. And I believe in evil. You know, I believe evil exists. I believe that there are really bad people out there. Like John, though, I do not believe that's a majority of people. I don't believe it's even a substantial minority. I think it's a certain percentage of the population that are just evil pieces of shit. And Augie Smith is one of those people. And unfortunately, he raised a son who, you know, you also find out through the series is actually a kind of sensitive human being, maybe even oversensitive in certain ways. And because of that sensitivity, he's built this thing around himself that is a protection against that. And so that interplay for me of seeing that person was interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine. And since you wrote all episodes, but after watching every episode has an end credits scene, and it feels like a lot of scenes might have been improvised or added on. Or otherwise, you must be one hell of a writer because I don't understand how you can come up with all of that. But I also can't understand how, John, you can come up with all of the stuff we hear you say. And I'm now talking about the post-credit scenes that are like little things I guess you wish you could have used in the show but couldn't, or was the end credit scenes planned?
They were planned. I mean, it was like, I was like, they weren't always planned. Sometimes we used something that I didn't know we were going to use. Like the first episode, that was just, you see a little piece between him and his dad. And that was just something I threw at Robert. And then John's reaction is classic. And I thought it was funny. And so we put it at the end. And I thought, our crew works hard. We have a hard-working crew. And I would love for people to stick through the credits, look at those names, and also hear the great songs that we have playing over every single end credit sequence, and stick through the end credits, listen to the music, and watch those end credit scenes. So I thought, I thought it was nice to give something to the fans who stick through the credits on every episode. And sometimes it was improv, sometimes it was John's improv, sometimes it's me shouting stuff at John to say, sometimes it's us going back and forth. And then sometimes it was stuff that was written that just didn't make it into the cut. So it just depends from episode to episode. And then there were times near the end where I was like, oh my God, we don't have anything for episode 7. I got to get something here. And so I actually went out and tried to make something for that episode. But so it varies.
It's a good segue though, with the music. Since you obviously, the Swedes always felt like you hated us after the Suicide Squad, since we killed off our hero. But in this show, we get Dynasty, Sister Sin, and the Finnish Hanoi Rocks.
Yeah.
So who's the glam rock fan of this show?
Me.
Yeah, 100%.
But also Peacemaker. I mean, it's music that seemed to match Peacemaker's personality. So it's written specifically for him. But let me also say to the Swedes, I'm a huge fan of Swedish music, of Swedish pop. I have thousands and thousands of Swedish pop and rock tunes from over the years. Everybody from Eggstone to Money Brother to Monster to whomever. These are all, I love, Swedish music and Northern European music in general. And so using some of the sleaze metal bands from that area, which is really the place where it sort of survived and stayed the strongest, was exciting to me to give some of these really great bands a spotlight.
Yeah, it's a great episode. It's a 5th episode, so That might be one of those Easter eggs that will fly over the heads of a lot of viewers, but I was happy I noticed it. Now when Marvel has finally unlocked the gates to the multiverse, and DC will go even further down the crossover rabbit hole with the Flash, meaning it's never been a better time to do a DCU MCU standalone movie crossover or TV show. And you obviously seem like the perfect fit there. Would you be interested in combining these universes that you've been playing around with for the past couple of years into one project?
If the story was good, I mean, I really, just being completely frank with you, like what really interests me is a great story, a great character, great group of characters, relationships. I love action sequences. I feel like I love doing action sequences more than anything else. But people are become so focused on connectivities. They can become so focused on this crossover and this cameo and this Easter egg and this thing. And part of me right now is just like, I just don't care about any of that. I really don't. Yes, seeing Batman and Spider-Man together, that would be a thrill for me as well. But I also think that, what really matters are good stories. And I would hate to think that the stories are being forgotten in place of, just characters. Yeah.
John, I prior to this, I saw some old clip of you talking about practicing playing the piano. In this show, you actually get to play the piano. So now you're getting paid to play the piano. So congrats on that. So you've made it this far. So was that scene always in the script as well, or was that something you pitched, or did you, James, know that John was doing his little piano thing on the side?
I think it was always in the script from the first time I read it. It was always there. I loved it.
That was because you played the piano the day my dog died. Like it was, you know what I'm talking about? It was, my dog was, almost 17 years old. He'd been with me for a long time, was my best friend, and he died when I was in Panama shooting the Suicide Squad. I decided he didn't die. He was about to die. And I decided I wanted to fly home to be with my dog, and the crew and the cast and everybody was supportive in that we took a day off so I could fly home and be with my dog as he was dying. And we were sitting in a bar, and John went over to a piano with his tiny espresso cup, and especially tiny in his hands, and played a beautiful rendition of the Pixies' Where Is My Mind? And that it was a really beautiful moment. People were teary-eyed, and it was just this special moment. And I think I carried that with me. And so that was seeing a part of John that was different than the John we all knew, right? And I think that in the moment comes up in the series with that, which I probably would rather not spoil, so maybe I shouldn't even talk about it. But I think we get to see a piece of Peacemaker that we don't know exists in that moment, and I think it's one of my favorite scenes in the whole show.
I loved it too. So I only have one more question to go, and then we need to wrap it up. And we had a few legendary filmmakers talk down on superhero genre. And at the same time, right now, Spider-Man is like saving a lot of cinema businesses from going under. And I was wondering where you guys think the superhero genre is going from here. Are we at the peak, or where will we go from this, you think?
Well, I think John and I are storytellers and not necessarily clairvoyants. So I'm not sure we know any more than you do. In fact, you probably know a lot more about pop culture overall than we do. So maybe but I do think that one of the things I love about Peacemaker is being able to tell the story of a superhero, who's really just a guy in a costume, which is a different sort of story. And I think as long as people can keep telling stories that are different in different genres, different types of stories that are in the world of comic book superheroes and so forth, I think that's great. I think that as long as they don't become too boring, I think that's fine.
I'll chime in there as well, because of experience I have with the WWE. Oftentimes, people visualize what's called dream matches, one name against another name. And many times when you simply just book a dream match, the dream match can be a letdown because there is no story. So now you have a world with all these identifiable IPs, all these names, all these main event players. And on paper, it all sounds great. I want this main event player against this main event player. But in WWE speak, you're only going to sell the stadium out if they believe. And they have to believe in the story, and they have to be interested in the lead up to the payoff. So it could be a gift. It could be a curse. The gift of a bunch of identifiable IPs is now you can play around with the story. But if you just get complacent and lazy and throw Iron Man and Batman on the top of a marquee, you may draw once, but if it's not entertaining, you kill the IP. So I think in going forward, the superhero universe has done such a great job with identifying the world with all their IPs. They just have to not get complacent and just plaster the IP places. They have to keep in mind, like and the thing I say is you take everything like it's your first match. You take everything like it's your first story. So as long as they stay invested, like James said, I don't see a reason for people not to be interested, because, WWE's been around forever and they keep on trucking along, even without me, because they have meaningful characters and they develop wonderful stories. And I think if the superhero genre can do the same thing, I don't see an end in sight.
Great. Thanks for all your answers, and good luck with the premiere, guys.
Thanks, Jonathan.